everybody, this is Trevette. It sounds like I'm yelling, sorry. This is Trevette from TrevetteHarper.com. I am here today. My God, y'all gonna enjoy these ladies. This is Alicia Hill and Jamie Dinwiddie.
Hey.
Hallelujah. From Unapologetically Speaking. I want to say it right because it's important to be unapologetic.
Absolutely.
We're going to jump right in here because I cannot wait. Oh my God. We've been clowning for a few minutes, y'all.
Just a little bit.
Let y'all know
We've
that.
been clowning.
The pre-show.
You know,
Just a little bit.
we should have reported that, but that's the latest.
So
no,
ladies.
we had to cover it up to protect the innocent.
Right.
Yeah.
We are saved, though, don't.
Yes. Don't get it twisted.
No.
It's going to be like this. It's going to be like this. Just like y'all know. So, ladies.
Yes.
Tell the people what is unapologetically speaking. You gotta pause when you say it because it's a tongue twister. Go ahead.
Hey, you got to be intentional when you say it.
Mm.
And that's exactly what we
Together.
wanted. We wanted people to be able to slow down because not enough of that is happening today.
My God.
And so I guess I'll kick off by just kind of saying that we started this podcast because it really started with a conversation that Jamie and I were having. We are extremely good friends, and we had I was on maternity leave, as a matter of fact, and we were just talking over the phone, kind of sharing our heart. And one of the things we were talking about was just our daughters. And how important it is for our daughters to have not only great role models, but role models who are authentic. And who are not ashamed of their growth, of their story, of their journey, and who are willing to share what their story is so that they can glean from it. And that's so, we really said, it'd be great not just to, as we continue to pour into our daughters and into other women that we're in relationship with, we said, what about a podcast? What if we decided, hey, let's just start a podcast and share some of these intimate conversations that we have as friends and as sisters, but share it with the world, other women who probably are having these same conversations, and if not, they would really appreciate being in on these conversations.
Yeah, it did. It started as a conversation, and the other piece of it is we were thinking about even the authenticity of our friendship and how that doesn't exist between women anymore. I mean, the perception, at least, when I speak to a lot of women and I interact with a lot of women, I think that is lacking and missing. And so it also came from a place of us saying, you know what? We feel like other people should be a part of these conversations that we have. When our schedules allow, we try to have conversations in the mornings before work or sometimes after work, and it was just something that we really wanted to share with the world and talk about those really critical topics that women face every day. Some of those areas where it's like a dilemma, like, well, I'm this one day and I'm that. How do I stay authentic? How do I speak my truth? How do I and speak it, but at the same time not be offensive, right?
That's the topic.
Because it's tough, right? It's tough, and so that's really what Unapologetically was birthed out of. And then, really at the cornerstone of that, again, like Alicia said, we have daughters, and so wanting to raise our daughters in a society where, again, from our perspective, authenticity is lacking. You see a lot of things on social media. It's like, is that really your life, or is that the life you're projecting? Right. And so, I mean, I strive hard, and Alicia strives hard, I know, because I watch her walk personally every day, to be the same person that you see. If you see me on Instagram or you see me on Facebook, that's who I am. That's who Alicia is. And so not to have these two identities, not to raise, and we don't want to raise our daughters to do that. And then we also want to share that with the world as well. So.
Woo! That was just so much right there. I've been thinking since you've been talking, but let me ask you, ladies. So in your podcast, we're talking about being unapologetic, and I love how you say it intentionally. Not that it needs to be slow, but it's intentional. Out of the podcasts that you've had, what have you learned on this journey as you've been having these conversations and sharing them with everybody else?
Wow. So I'll say the first thing that we learned was how to do a podcast. Like,
what?
So I thought it was interesting because I can say that I appreciate so much my friend Jamie here because her philosophy for life is, I was like, we don't know what we're doing. And she was like, we'll figure it out.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey. And so honestly, I'm learning more and more about myself.
Amen.
And I'm a kind of type A personality where I'm like, let's have a plan. Let's put this together. And that doesn't mean we don't have plans. We absolutely come together and we plan our episodes, we plan our conversations, but also we had to kind of walk in this courage, in this boldness, and that's why we say be bold, be courageous. And be unapologetic, because we realize how important it is to walk into something that can seem very ambiguous and very vague and very, you're just not sure what you're doing, and to be able to walk in there confidently and say, you know what, I'm going to figure it out, because we feel that we are equipped to do this. This is what our purpose is. It is to help empower and uplift other women. And so we were like, us not knowing how to do this is not going to stand in the way of that.
Yeah. I think the other piece that was really difficult for us was realizing that being unapologetic is a journey, and it's not always easy.
Yes, absolutely.
When we would come up with the topics, like we had a number of topics, one centered around humility. Actually, it was called Humble Women Win, talking about how you win with humility, and also just other ones around confidence and mindsets and just making that shift, and then knowing that unapologetic doesn't mean you have the right to be mean or nasty. But at the same time finding that balance. And I think what we learned is, from week to week, as we were designing and developing the podcast, that it wasn't easy. Because we also wanted to be mindful and very deliberate about the things we were saying, because we know that people are listening and that what we say will have an impact on someone. And so we wanted to have a very positive impact. And so I think it also challenged us that, am I living what I'm saying? So I mean, it's easy to get on that. Again, we go back to that authenticity and what you see on, a social media page, and making sure that lines up with who we really are. And sometimes our own content checked us.
Woo!
Like,
okay,
I'm not doing that. I need to do that. I'm not doing that. So I think that was probably one of the most one of the most challenging parts.
Oh, that's good. And you know what? I love both of your responses, Alicia, especially because you said, how to start a podcast.
Yeah.
Right? Right? Like we said, we were going to do it, but I think that's a testament for so many people out there that want to do something. You don't have to know it. You don't have to have it figured out at the beginning. And I love that you guys are talking about having courage and being bold and saying, we're going to figure it out, but we're going to do it. And we're still going to figure it out. And then Jamie just talking about the journey as you're going through it, right? Some of us want to have it figured out when we start. We want to say, oh, I've arrived. Let me tell you how I got there.
Yeah, right.
That's always true.
If that ever comes out of my mouth, I need you to shut it down.
Right. I ain't never listening to that podcast again.
Right?
Yes.
That's not true.
So I love that, and I feel like that is just a message that I think should be reinforced continuously, because even with the podcast, if you say you start doing something else, let's say Unapologetically Speaking becomes a book,
right?
You know what I mean?
To be continued.
Well, did I hear that in the spirit? Come on, God.
Come on, God in you. Your
word.
Hey, I receive it.
I gotta get it again.
Yeah. She's a mess.
But I think, Jamie, you ended it off with saying one of your favorite episodes, and that actually was going to be my next question. What is each of you, one of your favorite podcasts, and what did you learn from it? How did it inspire you, or what did it do for somebody else that you learned?
Oh, that's a tough one. Because we've done quite a few.
I have to think.
Yes.
I almost need to run the list. You know what? It's in moments like this, it makes me feel like, we've done so much more than we think, because we actually have a list of podcasts, a long list.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even remember all of what
you know what? One of them that I really enjoyed when we talked about unapologetic girls. And I really enjoyed raising them and just that process. And I think, Jamie, you said, and we cracked up too. You said something about, like, some people don't have an approach of raising their children. Like, they just don't have one at all. No approach. And you try to do that, like, man, we need
what's
to
your
find
approach?
one. I'm gonna need you to find one. But you were speaking again unapologetically. You were speaking so much truth there because there are people. We were just talking about that now. How people aren't actively raising their children and actively raising especially your daughters in this world where there are so many competing messages, so many distractions that are trying to pull them further and further away from their purpose. We have to be active about telling them how beautiful they are, how awesome they are, how smart they are and intelligent, but also how they are going to make a difference in the world around them.
Just like
and how they are leaders, just as they are.
That's right.
Just as with all of the melanin pop.
Come on.
Okay?
Don't get me started.
She said, "Don't get me started." Yeah, that was a really good one. I did enjoy that. I did enjoy that one. I do think that there's so many to pick from, but I do think that Humble Women Win was one that I really liked. I think that one of our biggest fans, your mom, actually sent us a text message about that one and was like, "Ooh, I love that episode."
Yes.
Right.
And I think it's because humility gets so it gets misconstrued.
Yes, it does. Talk about it.
It's
Jamie.
almost as if, if you're humble, that means you let people walk all over you, say whatever they want to say to you, do whatever they, and that's not that you're not like a rug that people get to walk all over.
Come on.
Yep.
But humility does mean that you are poised and that you are a servant to others,
Yes.
and that you confidently speak up. And you speak up in a way that's loving, but also self-assured and firm.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so I think we talked about that, had a very conversation, and it's tough because it challenges people's. I mean, I think Alicia even found an article about humility that we discussed on that podcast.
Yeah.
And it challenges people to think differently about humility and what that really looks like. And we even talked about false humility.
Yeah.
When people are like, "Oh, I'm humble," it's like, are you really?
Right.
Let's talk about that. What that looks like.
So I think that was one, and that one we really got deep in that.
Yeah,
one.
we did.
So that was a good one.
Oh, I love it. Ladies, can you tell me, how does your faith play into your podcast, or does it?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
It's interesting because one of the things we talked about when we were transitioning into a new episode and kind of changing up our structure was that we wanted to make sure that we talked about our faith more because it's a part of who both of us are.
Yes.
And we wanted individuals not only to hear what we had to say about these topics like humility, about raising girls, about leading your best life. We have another episode such as that, but we wanted people to hear that our source is our Father, is our God. And so He is the one who is shepherding us as we go on this journey towards being more unapologetic in Him. And again, people talk about, what does that look like?
Yes.
And we want to be able to not only talk about it, but we want to walk that.
Amen.
And so that is faith is huge. It's huge, and you'll hear us now more openly talk about, what scriptures, what word is kind of guiding us, and what word we need in certain seasons.
Amen.
That we're latching on to and that we're using to help kind of build ourselves up as well.
You see me rocking because I'm in agreement. Come on.
Jamie? Jamie? So we, and this is another piece of that journey, right, that we struggled with initially. How much do we talk about it? Do we talk about it at all? We want to have a diverse audience. What if everybody isn't a God girl, as we like to call it? What if everybody isn't into, Jesus? Because everyone is. We don't want to push anyone away.
Yeah.
But it really challenged us to be, again, what we're asking or what we're promoting, which is this idea of authenticity.
Yes.
And so, we would stumble on some of the podcasts and be like, well, I know y'all, everybody that's listening to this may not be Christians, but we are, so we don't want to offend you. I mean, it was too much.
It was too much. Too many extra words.
Talk about it.
It was too many extra words. And then one day we really just had a heart to heart and just said, listen, this is who we are. This is our faith. This is what we believe in. And we should be able to unapologetically share with people what our faith is and what's the driving force behind who we are as women. And what's the driving force behind really the wisdom and the nuggets that we're giving during these podcasts. Because a lot of the things that we talk about are God inspired and are written in the word, the only word that matters, right? And so that was, again, that challenge of becoming more comfortable with who we are and saying, you know what, if that makes someone else uncomfortable, then that's not our issue, that's your issue.
That's it right there, right there. So I want to ask you both as we kind of wrap up here, why is it important to be unapologetic?
Yeah. You know, when I think about unapologetic, I think of the thing that comes to mind is self-love. I think that we love ourselves enough to be honest with ourselves. I had a mentor who a long time told me that the worst person you could lie to is yourself.
Well,
when you start lying to yourself, you got major issues. And so being unapologetic, I think it's important because it has everything to do with just being in a space of keeping it real with yourself and then not being afraid to show the outside world who you are in its entirety. You know, it allows you to not have to wear these multiple faces. And that's a daily task, right? Because you go to work, you're in these different environments, and it's like, which Jamie do I need to be today? Right. And I want to be just one. Like, I'm one. There's not multiple of me, you know? And so, and that can really drive a person crazy, and that's where identity crisis comes from, right? Having an identity crisis. That's when you start to live in a place of doubting yourself. That's when you start living up to other people's expectations more than you're living up to your own and who God called you to be. And so being unapologetic is not comfortable for others, but it's a real uncomfortable place for you. And so that's why it's important.
Wow. And I'm not going to add too much to that because I think she hit the nail on the head. It reminded me of another episode that we did called Boundaries and Balance. And I will say for me, being unapologetic is also, it's kind of, again, in the same form of self-love, but it's creating those boundaries so that I can be more of me. And so not allowing things to really deplete me or to get me to a point where I am always last. And so that I just can't live that way. And I can't pour out into people that God has called me to serve if I'm doing that. So I have to, if I'm empty, exactly. And so we have to be in a space of being unapologetic because in order for us to really achieve that intended person, that intended being that God has called us to be, we absolutely have to know how to create some boundaries and create balance. And another thing, I was talking to a friend the other day, and we were talking about just making room for Jesus. You know, making room for Him, and that being so important as a part of our day and who we are. Because when we're not doing that, all this don't think that room just gonna stay empty. It will get filled with other stuff.
That is so real.
So I mean, you either can get filled up with Jesus or you can get filled up with junk. But either way, you got to make room for her. So
the right Jay.
I say that unapologetic.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. This is awesome. Thank you. We haven't been able to do this we haven't been able to get in front of the camera as much as we like this year. So this is definitely a pleasure to sit here and talk to you and also share a little bit about Unapologetically Speaking. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, and let me just tell you something about Trevette. So if you are just coming past this lovely video and you're just now being introduced to this lovely woman who is doing what God has called her to do, you might want to go ahead and click that follow button. Because she is going to uplift you, and she is going to pour into you, and she is going to pray for you and encourage you to be all that you can be. So please, absolutely check her out because she's amazing.
Personality is magnetic.
Oh, I love y'all so much.
And she brings continue. You're so silly. All jokes aside, seriously, you have a very magnetic personality, and one that even if someone's having a bad day, I can see how the spaces that you're in brings a smile to other spaces. So that's definitely a gift that God has given you, and so I think you're in the right space and doing the right thing.
Absolutely. We look forward to having you at our conference sometime soon.
We are. That's a shameless plug.
That was just a shameless plug.
Hey.
Unapologetic. You know,
About
that
that.
was marketing classes.
It paid off.
Paid off a little bit.
We gonna end it right there.
Yes.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Yes.
Ladies, I love you so much. And guys, look out for their information on my page, my blog, and on my Facebook and IG. Both. Everything. All of it.
Yes. So can we end like we normally end?
I was thinking that. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll say be bold.
All right, and I'll keep it going, and you go finish it off. Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
All
you
right.
know how to finish it off?
Tell me.
Okay. So she don't know. We gotta.
No, we gotta.
I'm gonna say be bold.
I got it.
She's gonna say
Be courageous.
Be unapologetic.
Yes. ma'am.
yes. All right.
You
You ready? Okay. So we're gonna ask you to be bold.
Be courageous.
And be unapologetic.
Bye.